Good morning, everybody. Great to have you all here. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. It is great to see so many of you. Clearly, I want to thank our partners, M&T Bank, St. Joseph's Health, for their sponsorship and support of this event over the years, and obviously to all our members and partners that are with us today. Thank you for being a part of this Syracuse and Central New York story that we are rewriting together and navigating these trends that Luke is talking about. It is just a remarkable transformation. We'll talk about that a little bit more this morning that we've undertaken and that we are undergoing here in this region. And it's so fun to be a part of it with all of you. I want to take a minute and thank our staff, our entire team here at CenterState CEO that does remarkable work. Just the fun and the professionalism that they bring to this effort year after year, month after month, day after day. Those individuals are such a huge part of the growth trajectory that we are now on as a region, and I am deeply grateful and proud to call them all colleagues. So thank you all very much. To my wife, Corinne, my son, Ben, have been incredibly supportive and patient with me, especially over the last year. I'll tell you a true story. Every summer, many of you probably know, I try to go up to our camp in the Adirondacks every summer, spend a couple of weeks, and rest, relax, recharge the batteries from the grind. And this past summer, that planned vacation happened to coincide with the critical period where we were trying to get the CHIPS Act passed in Washington. And so while I was sitting up on my porch at camp, listening to the river run by, on the phone, literally, with our New York team, County Executive McMahon, who's here, and our partners at the state, the federal level, and making phone calls to every single chamber of commerce in every part of the country, trying to find swing state senators and Congress people to vote for this critical piece of legislation that we needed to be able to bring Micron to Central New York, to bring Micron to the United States of America, that our country needed. And at the end of that time, I think I worked 180 hours over those couple of weeks, and we were driving home, and my son says to me, he says, "Dad, you know, you're pretty good at a lot of things." He's like, "You're really bad at vacation." And, he was right, obviously. So I spent a little bit of time this winter. I tried to disengage for a week, and as we were coming home after the new year, he said, "Dad, I'm giving you 2 stars back for vacation this time." Now, most of you would say a 2-star review is not something to strive for, and I'll take Luke's approach, the economist. I'll say that's a positive trend. So got to keep working on that. And Luke, I just do want to thank you. That was great. The insights, I think, are so helpful to us to understand the sort of national context in which, the global context in which our economy is operating. These are trends that we need to be paying attention to. These are trends that are impacting our community, despite the optimism, despite the major investment, and the opportunity for us to break free and move past those national level trends and do things here that are exceptional is right before us, which is something that is new for us. We haven't always had that opportunity, and I am really looking forward to having the opportunity in 2023 to outperforming our national and our global expectations. Listen, nearly 70% of our respondents said that the strength of their business in 2023 is strong or very strong, similar to last year when 72% described their business as the same. 73% expect sales or revenues to increase in 2023, on average by about 38%. 54% expect to expand products and services this year, down about 2% from last year. 47% expect to increase capital investments, down again 2% from 2022. And more than 72% expect to increase jobs and hiring, which is 4% higher than last year. A tremendous amount of optimism. But as much as this event is about putting into context the economic trends of the past year and anticipating what we are likely to experience in the year ahead, it's also about how we use this data to inform our longer-term future planning. Well, even as this year's data is slightly tempered compared to 2022's outlook, it is on par or better, in the case of hiring plans for sure, with where we were in January 2020, right before COVID and the pandemic. As you'll recall, there was near unbridled enthusiasm for the direction of the Central New York economy. Now, the upward trends of the past 2 years following the pandemic and the momentous opportunities announced last quarter are indicative of a bold new trajectory for this region. And this trajectory is likely to dominate this forecast for years to come. Other economic indicators also highlight this new growth trajectory in an economy that is outperforming the nation by several measures. Take unemployment. The unemployment rate for Central New York was 2.8% as of November 22, compared to 3.6% statewide and 3.4% nationally. We're not only outperforming the rest of the state and the country, but also several of our upstate peers. In 2018, job growth in the region was just 1.2%. Today it's 4% in Central New York, 5% in New York State, 4.4% nationally. We're catching up. Again, when compared to our upstate peers, we're on par or outperforming that job growth, which is always a critical metric of our success here in the region. And even wage growth, which historically has been an area where we have lagged behind the national average, traditionally underperformed, wage growth is 7% in the Central New York region, almost equivalent to a 7.5% statewide rate, and higher than the 6.7 rate that we have nationally. Now, perhaps most notable is GDP growth. Right now, Central New York's GDP is about $44.3 billion, which represents a 6.3% rate of expansion. And according to Empire State Development's research, starting in 2025, Micron alone will increase the state's GDP by $9.6 billion a year, with much of that impact being felt right here in Central New York. That is a level of growth that we have simply never seen before, and that we can count on and build our future around. And so while these anticipated headwinds that Lucas talked about, these are headwinds that we would be wise to heed, they also represent a short-term challenge. We talked about even the possibility by mid-year of having whatever recessionary pressures behind us with a clear sort of rest of the field to run for the rest of the year. This is a remarkable opportunity and a critical imperative to plan for the future that is coming fast. Now, this idea of a growth mindset is not a new field of study, but one that is incredibly relevant to where we are as a community. Over 30 years ago, Carol Dweck and her colleagues embarked on a study to evaluate students' aptitude for success and how attitudes about failure contribute to those long-term outcomes. Now, her research led her to coin the terms fixed mindset and growth mindset. And as researchers began to uncover the link between mindsets and achievement, they discovered two very important things. First, that grit was the leading determinant of success over family income, intelligence, and talent. Second, those who believed in the possibility of growth were more likely to succeed in growing. Those who possess a growth mindset believe that even if they struggle with certain skills, their abilities aren't set in stone. They take challenges head on, learn from them, and in so doing increase both their abilities and their achievement. Now, just like people, businesses and communities with a growth mindset are better equipped to overcome those challenges and adapt to change. Because a growth mindset is about perception and ability to adapt and evolve as a result of those challenges. And those who possess a growth mindset recover more quickly from setbacks because they see problems not as barriers to progress, but as opportunities for growth. Thankfully, here in Central New York, in 2023, we have optimism on our side. 5 years from now, this is my favorite statistic from our economic forecast, 5 years from now, a stunning 84% of forecasters see the Central New York economy as better than it is today. And that is what I hear every single day when I'm out talking with you, when I'm talking with our partners, when we are engaging in dialogue about what the future holds. That level of hope for the future is something that I think we should all embrace and take pride in. And while much of this optimism is rightly attributed to the announcement made by our colleagues at Micron to make historic and transformative investments in this community, I believe it reflects something even bigger and more important to our future. A fundamental shift in our belief about what is possible in this region. That mentality, a growth mindset, is exactly what we and our partners took to Micron. When County Executive McMahon and I and our federal partners and our state partners went and pitched this global technology company, it was about the future possibility here in Central New York. And that is the mentality that Micron brought to the table as they worked with us to craft the most significant community investment framework in our nation's history. They believe, like we do, that their future success is inextricably intertwined with our ability to lift our entire community up and create opportunity for all. Now, in a recent piece on Micron's investment in Central New York, the Brookings Institution rightfully pointed out that our regional civic capacity will need to surge to ensure Micron's investments meets its fullest potential, and that the announced development agenda will require the highest level of coordination across local government, schools, colleges and universities, community-based organizations, economic development organizations, and entrepreneurial support organizations. In other words, all of us will need to pull together in this moment and lead. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? That's been such a critical part of the formula for our success over the last several decades. And what I know for sure is that we've done it before. We unequivocally are prepared to do it again. And that is something that even Brookings, a leading think tank in this country and around the world, has pointed out, that Syracuse is uniquely positioned to capitalize on this moment. Now, you heard about economic challenges that will be faced by communities across the country. And likewise, I've been asked about the cooling of the semiconductor and tech industries and what that means for Micron's investment here in this region. And it's a logical question, and it's a fair question, and it's one I'll do my best to answer. I'll say this: we have never won as a community by playing the short game. And while many industries are facing real short-term recessionary challenges, our bet is on the future. Micron's investment represents a clear and predictable long-term strategy. It's a 20-year investment that places a firm bet on the rising digital connectivity of our world. Consider this. According to Excite, one of the premier design and consulting firms for the semiconductor industry, the total global data sphere, right? This is the amount of data that's collected and stored from our phones, our computers, digital cameras, smart thermostats, cars, and more. That global data sphere currently stands at approximately 100 zettabytes, which until a month or two ago, I didn't even know what it was, equivalent to 1 billion terabytes. It's a mind-bogglingly large number and amount of information. But the world around us is changing so rapidly, advancing, becoming more wired and interconnected than ever before, which isn't just leading to growth in the demand for memory and storage, but exponential growth. In fact, in the next 8 years, that global data sphere is expected to grow to 600 zettabytes, a six-fold increase in 8 years. Consumers, you and I, we're demanding more data, more processing, more technological advancements to enhance nearly every facet of our lives. That is why chip makers like Micron are building new fabs at an unprecedented rate, and why short-term market challenges have virtually no impact on these longer-range investments like the ones that we'll be having here and hosting in our community. So to prepare for that inevitable future, where this community becomes a leading location for semiconductor manufacturing and smart systems companies, we need to take this moment to make critical investments. And as many of you have rightly pointed out, we need to expand our collective efforts when it comes to attracting and retaining a thriving pool of talent. Unequivocally, you are saying to us, to our community, that this is one of the critical throttles to your growth. We hear you, we understand it, and we are working with partners to try to address it. At the same time, we need to ensure and invest in the skills development of those who already live here and address head-on those factors that are keeping millions, 3 million or more according to Luke, out of the workforce, often women, because of issues like family care, child care, and transportation. Our ability to ensure we all have the talent needed for growth will be one of the single biggest determinants of our success, and it will take all of us working together to develop and drive solutions. Housing, too, requires our careful attention and investment if we're to realize our full potential. revitalizing existing housing stock, especially in our urban and entering suburban areas, and creating new high-quality multifamily housing that is attractive and affordable must also be a part of our strategy. Our county executive's doing a great job at leading some of those development efforts here in the region. The same thinking must be applied to our approach to transportation. Now, I can't believe that we have to call this out yet again from the podium nearly 15 years later, but I-81 has been stalled once again by parochial and, frankly, from my perspective, even fantastical thinking. As a community, we have studied, debated, and come to the conclusion that the community grid is the best path forward, and it is time to build. Likewise, we need to continue to invest in our airport infrastructure. We have remarkable growth that's happening at Hancock International Airport, thanks to Jason Terreri and the team at the airport, back up to pre-pandemic travel levels, new service, new destinations, new airlines that we need to continue to build on. Now, we heard at the beginning of today from Dr. Hanks and some of the challenges that our healthcare system is taking, and I want to point out, this is important, our educational and our medical institutions have been the bedrock of this community for as long as I've been back in Central New York. They are our critical employers, some say our anchor employers. They have sustained this community through periods of economic challenge, and they are poised to support us in periods of economic growth. But both our educational sector, higher education, public and private, and our hospital and healthcare systems are facing unprecedented challenges. And we need to ensure, even as we focus on executing for new partners like Micron, that we are not inadvertently turning our back on those institutions that have been the bedrock of our economic strategy for decades and that will be the bedrock of our economic future for decades to come. Now, certainly 2023 will present new and unique challenges for all of us. However, every time we have been faced with a challenge, we've pushed through. We've been successful more times than not, even when things seemed unfairly stacked against us. And so at a time when we have the upper hand, which feels really good, when we are brimming with more potential than ever before, I firmly believe that we can go further and achieve even more. 2023 is a year that represents the beginning of that new path where we push the boundaries of our imagination and boldly ask ourselves the question, what's next? From my perspective, the answer to that question is simple. What's next is whatever we want it to be. Because we have picked this region up, and we have put it on our shoulders, and we have done things that no one thought that Central New York could accomplish. That's the growth mindset. We've done that together, and we've got a lot more work to do. Thank you all very much for joining us today.